Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast. I am your host, Janet Sandberg, and today we are joined by Stacey Brown. Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
I am so happy that you're here, and I'm so excited to hear your stories, plural. And let's just start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Stacey, and I I'll tell you about a series of events, but it led me to give up my career in the beauty industry to dedicate my life to helping people who are healing. So I do this
Okay.
through readings, I do this through coaching and mentorship, and I recently published my first book where I talked about
Amazing.
the story of everything that's happened to lead me here. But I'm a single mom. I have four kids. Three of them are grown. I actually have a granddaughter who's 5 months old, which is mind blowing.
Uh-huh.
And my youngest little girl is 10. She'll be 11 very soon. And she's with me half the time. So my life is very, very different than it was just a couple short years ago. But I am enjoying the path of being self-employed, and I love helping people. And so that's part of why I'm here today, is because I have a passion for helping people. So I'm in a really unique position right now in my life, and I'm exploring it, but I'm also enjoying it.
Awesome. I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
And yeah, so many of us who are helpers and healers, we do it because we've been through some stuff and we can help the people who are going through it now, which is
Mhm.
also why we have this podcast. So, so let's go back to the beginning, or maybe not the beginning, but the days where things got really bad and you thought about ending your life. What was going on then?
So, I have struggled since I was very young, like as far back as I can remember, I've struggled with anxiety. I grew up in a house that was very strict and very regimented. I was raised Mormon,
Okay.
and that impacted the way my parents treated us very much so. It was very controlling. And so I just remember always having anxiety. But when I hit my preteens and the beginning of my teenage years, I started to really struggle with my relationship, specifically with my father. And it was crippling me. It
Hmm.
was, for as young as I was, it was a very dark place to be.
Right.
And I felt controlled and I felt unseen and unheard.
Hmm.
And at about the age of 13, I decided I wanted to be done with it all. And I took a bottle of pills.
Oh my gosh.
And I ended up in the hospital, the psychiatric hospital. My parents put me there, and it was my first taste of really feeling darkness, where
Mhm.
I just didn't know what to do. And um, that struggle kind of eased as I got older and I started navigating life on my own. Like I took medication, felt somewhat stable, but still anxious at home. And then I went out on my own. I was really, really taken by the idea of getting married because I was raised Mormon. You get
Hmm.
married young. So
Yeah.
I got married when I was 18. I got married 2 months to the day after my 18th birthday. And I had a child out of that relationship. And then I had another child, and my next child um, had some issues at birth that were very, very traumatizing.
Mm.
And I had struggled a little bit with postpartum depression with my first child, but with my second child, I found that the darkness was absolutely overwhelming.
Mm,
And I reached out to a doctor. So I had the wherewithal to like, I need help, right?
right.
I knew I needed help, but I ended up going to a doctor who extremely over medicated me.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was like a zombie. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. Um, it would be better if I wasn't here.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not a good enough mom. I'm not, like just
Yeah.
all these negative thoughts. And I, again, took another bottle of pills.
Mm,
And I ended up in the hospital. And I remember thinking to myself, I can never let this happen again
mhm.
because the next time I might not be so lucky.
Right.
And I became very dedicated to my mental health and making sure that I showed up for myself the way I showed up for other people. And
Yes.
it was not easy, Janet. Like, I mean, it was not easy to get the help. It
Hmm.
wasn't easy to get the right help. Like the process was not easy, but I knew that I needed it to be a priority, especially because I ended up having more children and had to be aware that postpartum was something that could be a factor. And so I stayed on medication throughout my pregnancies. I made sure that my mental health was a priority, and I felt like I was in a really good space in my life. At the age of 40, I was in the best physical shape of my life. I felt spiritually connected, mentally and emotionally very healthy. I just was living the life of my dreams. And finally being released from the pain of the past.
Hmm. Beautiful.
And I'm raising my kids in my dream home in the country. And my 17-year-old son just plummeted into issues with his mental health and substance abuse.
Mm.
And in January of 2019, he accidentally overdosed in our home.
Oh no.
Not accidentally, it was intentional. But he wasn't trying to hurt himself. He was just trying to use.
Trying to feel better. Yeah.
And then 4 months later, he attempted to take his own life by running his car into a tree at 100 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh.
And all of the pain of my past was right back in my face again.
Oh, absolutely.
It was so significant because here I was finally, in a space where I had been like a couple decades in a healthy space and, you know, taking care of myself and really understanding like this is something I can make sure that I stay on top of, right?
Hmm.
And now here I'm watching my child go through the same kind of crisis. I mean, it was similar
Right.
and he should not have survived. Like it was miracle upon miracle that he survived. There happened to be an off-duty firefighter who was on the road when the crash happened, and he immediately went to the scene. And when he got there,
Wow.
my son was only breathing 1 to 2 times a minute.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm. Yeah. And it has been such a significant process to watch my child struggle with similar demons to my own.
Hmm.
And it's made me even more passionate about using my voice and hopefully relieving some of the stigma around it. I don't know that we can remove it. I hope so. But I want to be open about my journey because my hope is that maybe it will help someone else.
Yes. Yes. How is your son now?
He is 3 years clean and sober. He
Awesome.
is healthy in mind, body, and spirit. He has dedicated his life to helping people who are struggling with substance abuse issues. And he's a fierce advocate for not only his well-being and his sobriety, but for other people. And it's amazing. I mean,
Yes.
it blows my mind that we are where we are and that we've had this chance again because, like I said, I mean, he was really close to succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he's here is mind blowing. And
Mm-hmm.
out of that dark time, I wanted to free myself of the stigma. I wanted to remove the stigma for the sake of my son.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the decision to walk through the pain all over again and relive it all to write a book about it because I wanted to free myself and free my voice and hopefully give others space to do the same. So I published a book about a year and a half ago, and my son has actually read it and said how proud he is of what I've done and I guess what we're both doing to help other people now.
Mm-hmm. That was going to be one of my questions was, have you shared, your history with him? Like, does he know? But
Mhm.
obviously, yes, he
Yeah,
does.
yeah, he does. It was in the book, and I think he already knew some of it. I don't think he
Mm-hmm.
knew to the level that it was.
Right.
I've tried to be open with my kids, um, but I don't know how like in depth I went into it until he read the book. And I think then from reading the book, he realized, wow, like I'm not the only one who's struggled here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what a great role model you are that he, even just without reading the book, just living with you and knowing even some of your story that you struggled, but you worked on prioritizing yourself and your healing and you got yourself to a really good place, then
Yeah,
it shows that that's possible for him too.
yeah, and I'm not going to say that it's not a struggle. I mean, I recently was in the UK for a month, and I got sick while I was there.
Mm,
And from that physical sickness, I kind of spiraled into some anxiety and insomnia. And I was like, okay, hold on here. What's going on? Knew I had to address it because it was putting me in a mental health crisis. Like it was putting me in a space, not of being suicidal, but of being extremely anxious and like almost manic is the way I would describe it, like unable to calm my thoughts. And so I want people to hear I personally don't believe there's a cure. I believe it's about maintenance.
mhm,
Okay.
absolutely.
I really, really believe that. I believe that if you struggle with your mental health at any point in your life, it could be a struggle again.
Mhm,
And so for me, it's about maintaining. So as soon as I knew that something wasn't right, I was like, okay, I know what I have to do. I've got to reach out to my doctor. I'm meeting with her on a regular basis right now, and I'm making sure that I'm staying on top of it because I can't afford to go down that path again. And my perspective has shifted in that now that this is a priority, I'm able to stay out of that dark space.
yes. Yes. So what I fully agree. So I have so many questions in my head. Um, Got to put them in order. First of all, yes, maintenance is it's like dental hygiene, right? Like you have to brush your teeth at least once every day, hopefully a couple of times, because otherwise your your teeth get cavities and we have all sorts of problems. And it's the same with our physical health and our mental health. We have to stay on top of it in order to keep feeling good. Otherwise, we kind of go downhill.
Yes, it's
So
so true.
yeah. So what sorts of things did you do to get yourself healthy again? over the years?
So, exercise is huge, right? And I really got into running and ended up like going from barely being able to like pace myself for 15 minutes walking on a treadmill to like running the Baltimore
Oh
Marathon.
my God.
Yeah, so that was a big goal for me. And being physically healthy is super important.
Yes.
I'm also of the mindset that I believe that we have kind of four categories for our human experience. There's the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual.
Yes.
And I believe that we have to take inventory on all four of those areas to kind of see where we are and what's going on. So I'd use this technique with my clients, but I also use it for myself. On a weekly basis, I rate myself in all four of those areas because
Hmm.
then I know what I need, right? So sometimes it's that I need to get outside in the sunshine, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes it's that I need to journal and get my thoughts out and kind of process them. Sometimes it's that I need to punch a punching bag or go for a run, right? But I've just found different techniques that work for me and keep me in a healthy space. And I think for every single person, those things are different, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We're all unique. We all need different things at different times,
And I
which
think
is
the
what
other,
makes it so hard.
yes, it makes it so hard. And the other part of it is when you're in that space of darkness, you tend to not feel very motivated to do anything,
Hmm.
right? And so that's where I tell people like start small. You know, I mean, when I'm struggling, I find the first thing to go is the physical activity, and yet I know that's what I need the most, right? Like for my mental state more than anything else, I need it. And so I've just kind of found those things that work for me and that perfect recipe. And then again, it's making sure that you have the support, right? To be able to talk and say, like, I'm not okay, or to reach out to your doctor or your therapist and have the conversation. Those kind of things are really important for me as well. And I make sure that they happen on a regular basis.
Yes. Yeah. We need support from family and friends, support from professionals,
Hmm.
and whether that's therapists, doctors, coaches, healers,
Hmm.
any and all of the above in conjunction. Um, yeah, it's all important and hard to make a priority when we feel like crap.
Hmm. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And that's the other thing is I don't want anybody listening to this to think that I'm making it sound easy because it's not. I know it's not. And I know what it is to be in that dark space. And I know how hard it can be to pull yourself out of it. And so I don't want anybody to feel like I'm simplifying it or anything like that because the darkness is real. When you're feeling it, it is real and it is overwhelming and you can't see past it. You just can't. It's like there's this block and I know what that feels like and I feel like part of the reason why I went through all of this is I just believe in a higher power that would not let somebody suffer unless it was for a greater purpose. And I feel like we went through all of this with my son to almost awaken me on a deeper level to remembering what I had gone through and that I'm here with a voice. I need to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have a book and you
I
have a
do.
podcast
Yes,
and
I
you
have.
come on other podcasts sharing your story.
Yes.
Yeah, it's awesome. Tell us a little bit about your book.
So my book is called Journey to Soul Center: Discovering the Gift of Surrender. And it is the story basically that I'm telling you kind of in bits and pieces about the experience that I had growing up in the Mormon faith and how that impacted me. And then kind of my journey to growing up and discovering myself. And the final piece of that breaking wide open was what happened with my son. And so I talk about that in the book as well. My book is kind of different, Janet, because I didn't want to just tell my story and dump it on the reader. I,
Okay.
I wanted the reader to get like a takeaway from it. Like I wanted there to be like something that the reader could apply to them. So at the end of each chapter, there's like an open-ended question, like a thought-provoking question, and there's a journal prompt.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so it gets the reader to be like a little bit introspective about their own journey. And
Hmm.
I don't know what prompted me to do that, but I just knew that I wanted something where even if your circumstances are different than mine, there's something relatable in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing that I've found about doing this podcast is that, I hear all of these stories and everybody's situation is different, but they're all so relatable because the underlying feelings are the same. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we're all human. We all end up feeling the same things just because of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's what links us all together. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what makes me really sad is when you're in the darkness and you feel so alone and you feel like nobody has ever felt this way before. You're the only person in the world who has felt this way. And that's part of your brain chemistry and the depression,
Mm-hmm.
isolating yourself. Um, but that's how we feel. And when we're there, if we could, some part of us could just remind ourselves that we're just human. So of course, there are tons of other humans out there who have experienced these same feelings.
Yes. And we have to remove the stigma as much as we can because I think that the reason why it feels so isolating is because we're not talking about it enough.
Hmm.
We're not saying this is a problem that a lot of people are facing.
Yeah.
And in that, I think we're doing a disservice to the generations that come after us because, like I said, if I can go through it and my son can go through it, it can happen to anybody. And I never would have expected it would happen to one of my children. Never.
You never do because
Mm-mm.
as a mom, you think your kids are perfect. So, they're not going to have any issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, I was going to say something and it's totally gone from my head. It was something about removing the stigma for future generations. Oh, just that, I think it's becoming even more prevalent. I think in the olden days, whatever those were, life was a little simpler. And
Mm-hmm.
in I don't want to go on a tirade about social media and the internet and all of those things, but it does it's been proven that the younger generations that were raised with this, they struggle with anxiety and self-worth and depression so much more than the older generations who weren't exposed to all of that all the time.
Yeah.
So not only the need is greater, but yeah, we just have to do better.
Yeah,
And
it is crazy. Like the comparison and the constant in your face and not really having privacy like from your life. Like everybody's sharing their life and it's like it's just pretty mind-blowing to think about how like I can't imagine growing up with that kind of pressure like as a little
oh,
kid. I mean, I feel like life was hard enough going to school, 8 to 4 every day or whatever. But like the level of what these kids have kind of stacked against them is so challenging.
mhm.
It is so challenging. Like I can't even wrap my head around it and how that must feel to constantly be looking at your classmates or celebrities or whatever and feeling like you're comparing yourself. I mean, I think even as adults we do it,
Oh,
but
for sure.
I can't imagine with kids what what that would even be like.
Mhm. And it's making it harder and harder for them to form real friendships and relationships with people in real life.
Hmm.
Um, if you just talk
I
to any
agree.
of the Gen Zs out there who are trying to date, and it's just terrible. Like they can't hold conversations. Nobody wants to commit, like even to just go out, leave their house and meet for coffee,
Mhm.
and yeah. And which isolates them even more and then adds to the whole mental health problem. So
Yes.
we need to talk about it more. We need to just let go of the stigma. Like we're just people. We just have feelings. Like it shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, and the problem is that in the secrecy, we're losing people,
Yeah.
right? In the shrouding your feelings or your depression or your anxiety or whatever your crisis is that's taking you to that dark space, we're doing a disservice by allowing it to be something that you hush hush get quiet about. And we're losing people because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thankfully we have people like you and your son out there who are using their voices and helping people to to get through it and feel good again.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is to recognize that it's something that you've always got to keep in check,
Hmm.
that you have to consistently be making sure that you're taking personal inventory of where you are. Because in that space of doing that, like I said, when I just had this recent kind of bout, I knew that there was something I could do about it before it got to that place of real, like, darkness.
Right. Before you found yourself curled
Mhm.
up under the covers in bed, not able to get up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we all have days like that, right?
Yeah.
But the question is, can you get up and get past those days? And if you can't, then it's time to reach out for help. And I think we've just got to remove the shame and guilt around asking for help,
Yes.
right? Like, I mean, the fact is, there's so many things in my life I couldn't have gotten through without help.
Hmm.
And it's okay to ask for help. I think what's
Yes.
scary is I don't feel that we have the resources needed right now for people in the way that I feel we need them.
No, I agree. We definitely need more, just more everything, more compassion, more understanding, but also more professionals, more people in the mental health world
Mhm.
who and the healthcare world, who are appreciated and getting paid adequately. And people are dropping out of those fields because there's so much pressure
Mhm.
on them and they burn out.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's all messed up.
Yeah, I mean, it was really hard to get help for my son, and it was hard for me to get the help that I needed. And I just don't believe that we're doing enough right now with the resources that we have for so many other things. I mean, there's clearly a mental health crisis happening right now. And with that, we have to step up what we're doing.
Yes.
And a person can ask for help, but what if the help isn't there?
Right.
Right. And that's a whole other issue, but it is something that I am concerned about. I do think it's something that we need to do better with. And I think it's not just resources for adults, but I think it's resources for kids.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
and if
Teaching
I
them
were,
coping skills before it gets really bad, starting when they're, in elementary school.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like one of the things that we're really lacking as human beings is an education and an understanding of emotion and loving ourselves and coping skills and strategies. And I think about, nobody was teaching me that.
No.
Like I was being taught, to have guilt and shame, and I was being taught that, the bar was up here and there was nothing less that was
Hmm.
acceptable. And,
Yep.
those things just really can cripple a person,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it just, when you don't have those basic skills, then when you're in a crisis, you don't know what to do. And so I think there's also a level of like education that kids need to start with, probably even younger than elementary school, right? Like from the very beginning, like there's no understanding of how to navigate this life.
Yeah.
right? We're just kind of left to figure it out
Yeah.
emotionally, mentally, like, okay, every man for himself, like you're just figuring it out. If we were teaching kids these things, they would have some strategies that would hopefully keep them from that crisis. Now it's not guaranteed, right? But it
Yeah.
would at least give them some opportunity to be able to figure out how to navigate it differently.
Yeah. 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 It's yeah. There's so many changes we could make in an ideal world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just doing whatever we can, um,
Mm-hmm.
just to help move things along and yeah, reach out to the people that we can. And obviously if you're listening and you're struggling, just don't give up. Keep looking. I know help is hard to find, but it's out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would also say reach out to people that you know, love, and trust
Hmm.
because people want you around. People want you in their life and they have a special spot for you that no one else can fill. And so reach out to those people and give them the opportunity to support you through whatever it is that you're facing. I think sometimes just, instead of avoiding it.
Okay. Sorry, we had a little bit of a flub in the internet there, and you totally broke up. Can you repeat what you were saying?
Oh, I forget what I was saying now.
Okay. I'm sure it was wonderful.
Little flub in the internet.
Yeah. Okay. Can you, I mean, it's sort of the same thing, but any last words of advice? Or what would you tell somebody? What would you tell your younger self when you were struggling?
Um, Gosh, that's so hard because it was such a challenging time. And even now I look back on it and I'm like, I don't know how I made it through that, you know? So I feel like if I tried to tell my younger self it's going to get better, that would sound super cliche. Um, but I do think there is part of me that feels like I would tell her life is going to look nothing like you expected it to.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like you expected it to. But you're going to have some amazing experiences if you just hang on.
Yes.
Because I would say like there's so many powerful moments that I've gotten to experience because I held on, and I can't imagine not being around for those moments.
Beautiful. Yeah. And it's so true. Yeah. Life happens and it is nothing how I ever thought it would look.
Mm-mm.
It's full of
No,
surprises.
it really is, but in the most powerful way, right?
Yeah.
Because
It's
we're
so much
having,
better than I could have imagined.
yeah. I mean, there are moments that have been definitely way better, but there have also been moments that have been challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't imagine not experiencing any of them.
Yeah.
I've learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about why I am the way I am. And in this space, I feel like I am a better person because of the things that I've been through.
Yes. Yes.
So that's what I would tell her.
Okay. Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story. I really appreciate you and your strength and your courage.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope that it helps somebody out there who's struggling.
Thank you for listening. Remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are meant for more, and that it really does get better. If you are in crisis, there are numbers that you can call or text to get the help that you need. That information for Canada and the US is in the description below each episode. If you are in immediate crisis, please call 911. We love you, and I hope you'll listen again.